In the shadowed halls of a crumbling French chateau, a 12-year-old girl in a threadbare apron pointed at a priceless masterpiece and screamed in perfect Parisian French, "Si tableau est un fox!" And in that single heartbeat, she shattered a dynasty built on lies, blood, and stolen genius. If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button right now and show some love to the girl who risked everything for the truth. Because family is the only masterpiece that can't be forged. The chateau stood on the cliffs of Normandy like a wounded giant, its limestone walls bleeding ivy and salt from the English Channel. Inside, the air tasted of wax, old money, and secrets. Elise Moreau, barely 5 feet tall, moved through the corridors with the silence of a ghost, her black maid's dress 2 sizes too big, the hem dragging across Persian rugs worth more than her mother's lifetime wages. She was the maid's daughter, invisible to the family who owned the chateau, the paintings, and half the village below. But Elise saw everything. Her mother, Colette, had scrubbed these floors for 23 years. Colette's hands were maps of cracked rivers, her knees scarred from kneeling before marble fireplaces. She spoke little, smiled less, and never looked directly at the paintings that lined the grand salon. "Eyes down, ma petite," she'd whisper when Elise lingered too long before the canvases. Some things are not for us. But Elise was 12, and 12-year-olds are reckless with wonder. She had learned to read by tracing the gilded frames with her fingertips when no one watched. She had taught herself French from the dusty library books the family never opened. And she had fallen in love with one painting above all, La Fille au bord de la mer, a luminous portrait of a girl in a blue dress standing at the edge of crashing waves, her hair whipped by wind, her eyes holding a sorrow too ancient for a child. The signature in the corner read Édouard Valois, 1892. The plaque beneath claimed it was the artist's final work, painted months before he vanished into the Atlantic, presumed drowned. The Valois family, descendants of the painter, treated the painting like a relic. Old Monsieur Valois, arthritic and half-blind, would sit before it for hours muttering about legacy and bloodlines. His son, Philippe, a slick Parisian art dealer with a smile sharp as a scalpel, planned to sell it at Sotheby's for 30 million euros. The auction was set for the autumn equinox 3 weeks away. Buyers from Tokyo to Texas were already circling. Elise first noticed the anomaly on a Tuesday in late August. She was polishing the frame when sunlight sliced through the tall windows and struck the canvas at an angle she'd never seen. The girl's left eye, the one facing the sea, glimmered differently. A microscopic fracture in the paint, no wider than a cat's whisker, caught the light like a lie. Elise leaned closer. The crack wasn't random. It formed a perfect circle, no larger than a pinhead centered in the pupil. She had read about Valois's techniques in a forbidden book. The master never used circular motifs. His world was all angles and motion, waves and wind. Circles were static, dead. That night, she stole into the library and pored over Valois's letters, smuggled in decades ago by a curator who vanished under mysterious circumstances. One passage burned into her mind. "If ever my hand falters, I will leave a circle in the eye of the storm." A warning, a confession. Elise's heart hammered. The painting was a fake. But how? And why? She began watching the family like a hawk. Philip spent hours on the phone, voice low, promising authenticity guarantees. To anonymous buyers, his wife Camille, a former model with cheekbones like switchblades, photographed the painting obsessively, zooming in on brushstrokes, sending files to experts in Zurich. Old Monsieur Valois grew agitated. Clutching a locket with a faded photograph of a woman who looked eerily like the girl in the painting. "She's watching," he'd whisper. "She knows." Elise's mother noticed her distraction. "What troubles you, child?" Elise hesitated. Colette's loyalty to the Valois family was ironclad, forged in gratitude for the job that kept them fed. But Elise was done being invisible. "Maman, the painting, it's wrong." Colette's face drained of color. "Hush. You'll bring ruin on us both." But ruin was already coming. The first twist arrived on a fog-drenched morning. Elise, hiding behind a suit of armor, overheard Philip arguing with a man in a charcoal suit. The stranger's accent was American, Texas, maybe Oklahoma. "The provenance papers are ironclad," Philip hissed. "Valois painted it the week he died. My grandfather watched him." The American laughed, a sound like gravel. "Your grandfather was a drunk who forged half the impressionists in Europe. I've got lab results. The pigment in the waves. titanium white. Wasn't commercially available until 1916. Valois died in 1892. Philip's voice cracked. You're bluffing. Aim I, pay me $5 million to disappear, or I go to the press. Your little girl's college fund vanishes. Elise's knees buckled. The painting wasn't just a fake. It was a crime scene. That night, she crept into Philip's study. The room smelled of cognac and desperation. On his desk lay a folder stamped Confidentiel. Inside lab reports, emails, and a photograph of the real La Fille au bord de la mer, hanging in a private collection in Dallas, Texas. The Texas painting had no circle in the eye. Its waves crashed with a violence the Chateau version lacked. And the signature, slightly slanted, the V in Valois sharper, more defiant. Elise's hands shook as she photographed the documents with her mother's ancient flip phone. Then she saw the final page, a contract. Philip had commissioned the forgery in 1987, paying a disgraced restorer named Marcel Dubois 200,000 francs. Dubois had vanished shortly after, presumed dead. But Elise knew better. Marcel Dubois was alive, and he was her father. She found the proof in her mother's locket, the one Colette wore every day, the one Elise had never been allowed to open. Inside was a tiny photograph of a young man with paint under his nails and eyes like storm clouds. On the back, in faded ink, to Colette, my muse. Forever, M.D. Colette had been Valois's model. The girl in the painting wasn't a myth. She was Elise's mother at 17, pregnant and abandoned, forced to give up her child for adoption to protect the Valois name. But the child hadn't been adopted. The child was Elise, hidden in plain sight as the maid's daughter. The second twist hit like a tidal wave. Elise confronted her mother in the laundry room, steam fogging the air. Why didn't you tell me? Colette sank to the floor, sobbing. They would have taken you. Philip's father, he said I was a scandal. Paid me to stay silent. Gave me this job. But Marcel, he never knew you existed. He thought I lost the baby. Where is he now? Gone. After he forged the painting, they threatened him. He fled to Morocco. I get letters sometimes. No return address. Elise's world tilted. The painting wasn't just a forgery. It was a ransom note. She made a decision. She would expose the truth, but not to save the Valois family. To save her father, the plan was insane. She would swap the paintings the night before the auction. The real La Fille was in Dallas, owned by a reclusive oil heiress named Delphine Harrow. Elise had one ally, the American from the study, who turned out to be a private investigator hired by Harrow to prove the Chateau painting was fake. His name was Jack Callahan, a former Marine with a scar across his throat and a hatred for liars. You're 12, he said when she cornered him in the village cafe. Go home. I'm the only one who can get inside, Elise replied. And I know where the real painting is hidden. Jack stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed. Kid, you've got bigger balls than half the men I served with. The heist was set for the night of the harvest moon. Elise forged a letter from Philip, claiming an emergency authentication in Paris. The family left in a convoy of black Mercedes. Jack disabled the security cameras with a magnet and a prayer. Elise led him through the servants' tunnels, her bare feet silent on the stone. But Philip had lied. He hadn't gone to Paris. He was waiting in the Grand Salon, a pistol in his hand. The third twist was a bullet. You little rat, he snarled as Elise stepped into the light. I knew you were snooping. Jack moved to intervene, but Philip fired a warning shot into the ceiling. Plaster rained down like snow. The painting stays here. The money funds my daughter's future. You think I'll let a maid's bastard ruin that? Elise's voice didn't waver. That painting is my mother, and you stole her twice. Philip hesitated. In that heartbeat, Jack lunged. The gun skidded across the floor. Elise dove for it, her small hands closing around the grip. She didn't shoot. She didn't need to. She aimed at the forgery instead. No, Philip screamed. The bullet tore through the canvas, shredding the girl's face. Paint chips exploded like confetti. Behind the ruined painting, a hidden panel clicked open. Inside, the real La Fille au bord de la mer, wrapped in oilcloth, its colors still vibrant after a century. Philip collapsed, weeping. My grandfather, he switched them in 1944. Hid the real one from the Nazis. Replaced it with Marcel's forgery. I just kept the lie going. Jack cuffed him with zip ties. Lee's over, buddy. But the final twist was yet to come. As dawn broke over the cliffs, Elise stood before the real painting. The girl in the blue dress, her mother, stared back with eyes that held no sorrow now, only defiance. In the corner, beneath the signature, was a tiny circle. Not a flaw, a message. Elise opened the locket. Inside, tucked behind the photograph, was a folded note in her father's handwriting. If you find this, little one, know I painted the circle so you would know the truth. The real masterpiece was never on canvas. It was you. Colette arrived then, tears streaming, and embraced her daughter for the first time without fear. Jack tipped his hat. Texas is waiting, kid. Delphine Harrow wants to meet the girl who brought her painting home. Elise looked at the chateau one last time. The Valois dynasty was bankrupt, exposed, ruined. But she was free. Months later, the real La Fille au Bord de Mer hung in the Dallas Museum of Art, on permanent loan from Delphine Harrow. The plaque read, "Donated in honor of Elise Dubois, who proved that courage is the rarest pigment of all." And in a small cottage in Normandy, a 12-year-old girl opened a letter from Morocco. Inside was a new painting, a girl with storm cloud eyes, standing at the edge of the sea, a circle in her pupil like a promise. The signature read Marcel Dubois 2025. Elise smiled. Some truths are worth screaming in French. Now tell me in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching this video? Texas, California, New York? Drop your state below, and let's see where the truth is spreading.